Hey everybody, my name is Dirk from the Prime XPT Training Academy and welcome to today's episode of That Crypto Show. In today's episode, we want to discuss about a potential storm brewing on the horizon and whether the storm is going to give us the tailwinds and lead us to new all-time highs in Bitcoin, or maybe going to drown us back to 20,000 US dollars. So stay tuned and I'll see you in around about 20 seconds. Welcome back. So, when I got up this morning, I told my wife, somehow I feel like I'm missing something at the moment in the cryptocurrency markets, like a piece of information that gives me the hint in what is going to happen in October, November, December. Are we really going to see new all-time highs there, or am I completely wrong and maybe we're going to crash down again to 20,000? And so I wanted to sit down today and reevaluate everything. And if you've been following that crypto show already, the last time I said something like this was in July. So in this area back then around the 20th of July, where I said like, we are seeing here at the moment that the liquidity is running low. There's not a lot of volume in the market. I see that the Bollinger Bands are narrowing in anymore. And usually this is like the time when you see volatility squeeze either to the upside or downside. And although we don't see this, at least in terms of Bollinger Bands narrowing in at the moment here yet, it still feels like the market sentiment and the price action I'm seeing in Bitcoin at the moment are very, very contrary. So we still have a sentiment of extreme fear here in the fear and greed index. And extreme fear, as you guys know by now already, always means like that reactions to the downside, so those nasty big red candles have more momentum, are more severe than the reactions to the upside. And one thing that really is not that typical for the sentiment of extreme fear, in my opinion, is this zone we are seeing here between 40 and around about 42,000. Because whenever we dip down there, whenever the price dips down there, we see sooner or later some buying activity taking place. And this buying activity, at least this is what the on-chain metrics tell us, seems to be done by people who buy Bitcoin there and want to hold on to those Bitcoins for at least a year. So-called long-time hodlers, if you want to say, and use a term like this. So this doesn't fit really into the narrative. And this leads to a situation that, it's like a rubber band. You are pulling apart, and sooner or later, either it snaps or you lose grip on it and it hurts your hand. So you will see in reaction after the momentum is built up either to the upside here or to the downside. And so in many ways, I think the situation is very much like the one we saw back mid-end of July. And so I sat down this morning and I wanted to scan a little bit the news to kind of get a bit more in-depth feeling about, how other market participants might feel about the situation at the moment. And yeah, the first headline I really saw there was this one, not a surprising one, honestly speaking. Alibaba has banned the sale of crypto miners. So with China's total crackdown this time onto the cryptocurrency markets, totally forbidding anything cryptocurrency related other than their own digital yuan. It's not surprising that Alibaba, of course, is not allowed to sell mining equipment anymore, but it shows really the severity of what the Chinese government is doing there, in my opinion. But really the market is not reacting very much to this, and I think like there's not really any news anymore that can come out from China in terms of regulating or banning cryptocurrencies. They have gone all the way. So, I mean, the market is sooner or later going to get this out of the system short term. Another thing I saw here is kind of funny headline in my opinion. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon seems to grudgingly admit that Bitcoin price could reach 400,000. Now, if you've been following JP Morgan a little bit, Jamie Dimon especially, he's quite outspoken. He was quite outspoken in the past about Bitcoin. Not at all a friend of Bitcoin. I remember back in 2017, I think it was, he said something to the likes of it's a fraud, and if anybody at JP Morgan is caught dealing in Bitcoin or owning Bitcoin is going to get fired immediately. And I think this is very symptomatic of what I see from my own experience at the moment. I took some time in 2017 back then when I called ex-colleagues working at banks or family offices, and I would tell them, hey, I'm trading Bitcoin now. I'm buying up Bitcoin for long-term cold storage. Usually the kind of reaction I got back then was like, okay, first of all, what is Bitcoin? We don't know anything about it. Or Bitcoin, this is a fraud. What are you doing there, Dirk? Are you out of your mind? And when I talk to the same people now about Bitcoin, so in 2021, the reaction usually is quite different. It goes, of course, you still have those people out there saying like, Dirk, you're crazy, don't do that. But there are also plenty of them now telling, oh yeah, the bank where I work is launching Bitcoin vehicles for its clients as well to invest in. Or in case of a family office, yeah, we have been buying Bitcoin. We're putting like 1% of the assets under management in Bitcoin at the moment. So really totally different. And this underlines, in my opinion, what we are seeing in terms of institution demand out there, that the institutional demand is kicking in. And remember, especially JP Morgan and Jamie Simons can think about Bitcoin what he wants, but as a businessman and CEO of JP Morgan, he has also to follow the trends and the will of his clients. JP Morgan itself purchased a 10% stake in MicroStrategy earlier this year. And MicroStrategy, the company of Michael Saylor, holds over 114,000 Bitcoin, which are worth currently around about 4.7 billion US dollar. So yeah, times are changing, in my opinion. So why am I showing you this headline? So the first one obviously shows like, okay, China is really severe this time about banning all cryptocurrencies, and it doesn't really have any effect as it seems anymore at the moment. The second one, because I wanted to show you that there is institution demand out there, and don't let anybody else tell you something different. Third one is from Robert Kiyosaki. So Robert Kiyosaki, popular author of the books Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or book series is, and he is predicting a giant stock crash in October. And I think this is very interesting because of two things here. First of all, and remember, we talked about this in quite some detail in the last episodes of that crypto show. When it comes to the downside, the stock market and the price of Bitcoin, or in general the cryptocurrency markets, are very highly correlated. So when the S&P 500 goes down by 10%, you will for sure see Bitcoin going down by a minimum of 10%, probably more like 20, 30 or 40% actually. So this is something interesting. The second thing I find interesting about this article is, and he says, I'm seeing also a Bitcoin crash in October, but I'm sitting on a lot of cash at the moment because I want to buy in cheap after this happens. So the third thing I find interesting is, for me it goes a little bit into the direction of clickbait already again. The first thing, or one of the first things you learn when you work as an institutional trader, is to never bet on a crash. You might be fundamentally right, for example, that the stock market is overbought, that the prices for stocks are not realistic anymore. We are overdue for a large correction. Might be factual, everything right about. The problem is this crash can happen. It can happen tomorrow, but it also can happen 5 months down the road, 5 years or 10 years down the road. You never know when the bubble, so to say, is going to burst. And in order to, so it's very brave to predict it's going to crash in October. Maybe it's right. I kind of doubt it. That would be amazing if he has such a timing. But what he's correct with for sure is if we see that, we're going to see lower Bitcoin prices as well. So bringing it all together, we are seeing two things at the moment. We are seeing this zone here between 40 and 42,000, which acts as a very, very solid support. And it seems like, at least this is what the on-chain data tells us, as if we see a lot of long-term holders buying there. So this is building up momentum. This is, if we really see a crash on the stock markets in October, of course, we're going to see much, much lower Bitcoin prices then as well. If we don't see this, the reaction could as well be to the upside again, because remember, we are in the sentiment of extreme fear. And this is usually the time where the majority of traders out there tend to be on the wrong side of a market, and thus the surprise here would be to the upside. And the beautiful thing is, I'm going to give you really the same advice that I gave you down here in July. Is it for you as a trader? You are in the beautiful situation where it doesn't really matter if we are going to the upside or downside, because you can in this situation work with something that is called a stop buy or stop sell order. And if you go to your Prime XPT trading platform, you'll find this order here, for example. Yeah, if I click here on buy, I choose the order type stop, put in my amount. You know, this is just an example account now, of course. And I say I want to start buying Bitcoin, for example, at 48,000. Yeah, because I'm expecting, if we see a nice big move that brings us all the way to 48,000, that the likelihood of the popular forecasting models that say, okay, we are going to have a very nice autumn for the cryptocurrency markets with all-time highs is coming true. So I want to jump on board of a train because Bitcoin is going to, for example, 100,000. And I can send this order, and this order is now sitting in my order book. And you can do the same on the downside as well. You can have a stop sell order where you, for example, say, hey, if we see Bitcoin prices at 30,000 US dollars, I want to sell Bitcoin because it gives an indication that it's going further down. Or maybe the markets crash in October and Bitcoin falls down to 20,000 then again. And again, you can send this order. This order will be sitting in your order book then. And this means now you've secured yourself to both sides. If you, for example, agree with me, hey, there is something big coming, but I don't know if it's going to the upside, like the nice forecasting models are right out there, or maybe it's going to the downside, well, you're prepared for both sides then here. And if you don't want these orders anymore, of course, you can anytime cancel them by clicking on the X here. So beautiful order type, stop buy, stop sell, to prepare yourself for a market where you expect a big move, but you're not sure if a price move is going to the upside or downside. And this is how you can use the calm before the storm to prepare your market entry. This is all for today, guys. As always, stay safe, use a stop loss, use a take profit, and I'm going to see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.